Please sit in swastikasana just on some kind of support. It can be a blanket or a block or two blocks if you know you're a little bit tighter in the hips. The idea is that the knees descend rather than lift up, so more support can often help just to help open out the hips. And then please just change the cross of your legs to your non-first choice. Maybe just think, what is it about this cross of the legs that made it your second choice? And then pull the buttock flesh out of the way on either side. The idea of that is really so, first of all, you can feel yourself, feel the sit bones into the surface, but also then, once you can feel the sit bones, try to, as though you're pressing them down, rooting them down into the floor. So sit bones root down and then you lengthen through the crown of the head. You can also think of just lifting the ribs as though you had handles on these side ribs, just lifting them out of the rim of the pelvis just to lengthen the side of the body. And then keep that length you've created, bring the fingertips beside you on the floor, and think of just drawing the inner edges of the shoulder blades slightly together. Another way of thinking of that is the elbows drawing together behind you. And then once you've created that openness in the chest, bring the palms together into Namaskarasana, so palms and fingers evenly making contact. And then please close the eyes to begin the class. As you close the eyes, careful you don't drop the chest or the breastbone, so you want to keep that length you've created. And then just bring your attention to the contact of the two palms. So it's just, as I mentioned, a soft, even contact, neither palm overpowering the other, just the lightest of touch between the two. And then begin to draw your attention to your breathing, so not to change the breath, but just allow the inhalations and exhalations to happen. And really make sure you're not gripping the abdomen back, so you want that area to be soft. And as you keep the focus on the breath, then just see if you can scan any part of you that might be carrying tension. So the eyes are a good place to start. Just allow the eyes to soften, the inner cheeks, create this space between the lower teeth and the upper teeth. And then slowly nod the forehead in the direction of the fingertips. Keep your eyes closed as you release the palms to the inner knees, and then on inhalation, slowly open the eyes and look up. So please come to stand in the middle of your mat for Tadasana, and have the feet hip distance apart. So just a quick reminder, if you start with the feet together, you take the toes apart comfortably, and then just bring the heels in line with the toes. And for most people, that will give you hip distance apart. And then think of pressing down into the four corners of the feet. So the ball of the big toe presses down, the ball of the little toe, the outer heel and the inner heel. And once you press down into the four corners of the feet, then really think of drawing up the thigh muscles. So the muscles just above the kneecap, the middle of the thigh and the top of the thigh. Try to think of lifting them up and drawing them, sucking them back to the bone. Ideally, about 80% of the weight should be in the heels rather than the front of the feet. And as you maintain that engagement of the quadriceps, just be careful it's not causing you to push out the tailbone. So as the thigh muscles lift, you can think of the tailbone just drawing down to point a space directly between the heels. So not tucking, which would be to really grip the buttock muscles, but a sense of the tailbone lengthening down. And then once you've settled the lower part of the pose, again think of lifting the ribs long out of the sides of the pelvis, just to help create that length in the sides of the trunk. And just with the arms comfortably by your side, just draw the inner edges of the shoulder blades slightly together to maintain that openness in the chest. And then bring your attention to your right arm, bring it to shoulder height, pause at shoulder height, and turn the shoulder, roll the shoulder back to present the palm towards the ceiling, and then extend the arm upwards. Just bring the fingertips of the left hand to touch the tricep area, these outer upper arm muscles, and remind the flesh, the tricep flesh, to roll in, So, good. And then you can release the the left hand, good. And then bring that arm back down by the side, and then bring the left arm to shoulder height first, roll the shoulder back, and then extend the arm up towards the ceiling. Okay, just bring the fingertips of the other hand to the tricep area to remind that to cut in, and then bring that arm all the way back down by the side. Now, once more, bring your right arm out to shoulder height, roll the shoulder back, bring the fingertips to the opposite side of the head, so just above the temple, on the temple, just above the ear, and then reach your other arm across to try and take hold of the elbow, or wherever you can reach on the forearm. And now think of pressing down into the right foot as you lean up and over to the left. So rather than collapsing and pushing the hip out, try to think that you're going up and over a Swiss ball, one of those inflatable balls you find in gyms, going up and over to really lengthen that right hand side, the ribs on the side, good. And then release, just bring that arm back down by the side, and then bring the left arm out to the side, shoulder height, roll the shoulder back to turn the palm, extend the arm up and over to take hold of the right temple, bring the other hand to take hold of the elbow or the forearm, anywhere is good, and think of rooting down into the left leg, really root down into the left leg, and think you're going up and over in an arc towards the right hand side. So you really lengthen out those ribs, open out those ribs on the left hand side, and then carefully come back, just release the arms, and then once more take your right arm to shoulder height, roll the shoulder back, and extend the arm up towards the ceiling, and press down into that right leg in particular, so feel the ribs open, help to lengthen the arm up, and then bring that arm down, and then bring the left arm to shoulder height, turn the shoulder to turn the palm, extend the arm up, again root down into the leg, so you're trying to touch the ceiling, but to touch the ceiling you're going down into the leg to help lengthen the side. So in other words, not hiking up the shoulder with the trapezius muscle, but creating length throughout the whole skeleton, and then bring that arm down by the side. Good. Now bring both arms forward to shoulder height. Just be careful you're not protracting the shoulders, so you want to keep them just resting on the ribs. Interlace the fingers for Baddha Anguliasana, turn the palms away, and then keep the firmness in the legs, the slight grip of the buttocks, the tailbone down, as you begin to extend the arms overhead, but careful, as soon as you find yourself wanting to back bend or push the pelvis forward, that's where you need to stop. But if you are able to take them overhead, again, root down into the legs, into the feet as you extend the arms up towards the ceiling. And then just think of there's a hook on the breastbone, just lengthening up as you look up towards the hands. So you really lengthen the front of the body, bring the head and eyes back onto the horizon, and then release the arms halfway down, change the interlace so your other index finger comes on top, turn the palms away once more, again, connect into the legs, lift the thigh muscles, buttocks slightly engaged, tailbone down as you begin to extend the arms with this interlace overhead. Once they're overhead, or wherever you can comfortably get them, again think of reaching down into the floor to help lengthen the sides of the body, and then imagine there's that hook on the breastbone just helping you to lift the head to look up, and then bring the head and eyes back onto the horizon. Good. And then just release the arms back down. And then if you have a belt, please take hold of the belt. Keep the feet hip distance apart, so just as we had before. And then take a very wide grip on your belt. So I'm just holding it between the webbing of my thumb and index finger really. So I'm not trying to squeeze the belt and tighten the wrist. So just nice soft long arms. And then just doing what you can. Think of engaging the legs. Begin to take the belt up and over. And then come back. The wider you have the hands, the more it will make this more accessible for you. So just noticing, are you letting the arms go evenly, or is one chasing, going faster than the other? So just nice easy movement, being careful not to let this turn into a back bend. Good. And then once you've just done this a few times, so it's a big stretch for these pectoral muscles, pec major, pec minor, often just from our day-to-day lives get very tight and gripped, just stretching out that area. And then once you've done it a few times, just see, can you creep the hands a little bit closer together, but not too much. It quickly becomes much more intense, just a little, even if it's a millimetre, bringing the hands closer together. See if you can maintain the form, so both arms going equally, and trying not to shorten in the back of the neck to bring the belt overhead. Now the next time you have the belt overhead, pause there and think of taking the left arm down and reaching the right arm up and over. You can look down at the floor, so again really lengthening out that right hand side, and then come back, and then see, can you take it the other side? So think of reaching up and over. You can look down at the floor to really lengthen out that left side, and then come back overhead. Once more, take the belt behind you, and then bring it forward and back a few times. Just nice, easy movement. Good. And then release. Just put the belt to one side for a second. We'll be coming back to the belt. And this time, interlace the hands behind the back. And think of really drawing the shoulder blades together as you try and press the palms together and stretch the hands down towards the feet. So really squeeze the shoulder blades together, but careful again, you're not doing a back bend to achieve this, trying to keep the legs firm. Good. Now release and change the interlace of the hands behind you. And again, just roll the shoulder blades together. Try to stretch the hands down towards the heels. And then release. Good. Now this time, bring one hand onto the top of the other, so the hands are in the area of the lower back. And just think of pressing the palms lightly into the sacrum, and then just think of drawing your elbows together behind you, and then release. So you just think of the elbows going towards each other behind you, release. And see if you can notice that what this does is the shoulder blades begin to squeeze together. And then can you begin to think of initiating taking the elbows together by first squeezing the shoulders together to take the elbows back. Good. Just do one more. Really think, squeeze the shoulder blades together first to facilitate taking the elbows back, and then release. Good. Now, just take hold of your Some of you won't need a belt, but if you do need a belt, we're going to do Gomukhasana arms. Just have the belt on your right hand shoulder, and then first of all take your left arm out to shoulder height, roll the shoulder to turn the arm, extend the arm up towards the ceiling, and then turn the little finger side towards the space behind you, and see if you can bring the fingertips of that left hand between the shoulder blades. Now it's really important to keep the left elbow pointing up towards the ceiling rather than flaring out to the side. So see if you can just keep the elbow facing towards the ceiling, and then take your other arm out to the side. Roll the thumb side down this time. Bring that right hand to the area of the lower back, and see if you can creep the fingers up the spine to interlace the hands behind you. Or, of course, you take hold of the belt wherever you can comfortably hold it. But just check in with that left elbow. It's still pointing up towards the ceiling. Just breathe here. Good. And then carefully release, undo the arms. Bring the belt onto the other shoulder, onto the left shoulder. Take your right arm out to shoulder height. Roll the shoulder to turn the arm. Extend the arm up towards the ceiling, and then you turn the palm to the back of your room. Turn the palm to the back of the room, and see, can you bring that hand to the area between the shoulder blades. Again, very important, you keep the right elbow pointing up towards the ceiling rather than letting it flare out to the side. And then the other hand goes, left hand outside, roll the thumb side down. See if you can bring that hand to the area of the lower back, and then walk the hand up to try and interlace the fingers. And you all know by now, you might find it's very, very different to experience with one side compared to the other. Just see if you can breathe here in the pose. So big stretch for those tricep area that we were looking at before, and then just carefully release the hands. Just put the belt to one side once more, and then just again interlace the hands behind the back. Roll the shoulders together, and just stretch the hands down towards the heels, just to see if that's a bit easier. And then release and change the interlace to your other interlace. You can just think of squeezing the shoulder blades together as you stretch the hands down towards the heels. Good. And then release. Good. So stay with the standing with the feet hip distance apart. And see, can you keep your left leg straight, but just lift the heel, keeping the leg straight, and then bring it back down. So just lifting the heel, keeping the leg straight, and what you'll notice, so rather than pushing out into the right hip, so you keep the left leg straight as you lift the heel, you'll notice that the left side gets shorter, those oblique muscles begin to work, and the right outer hip muscles begin to kick in, those gluteal areas, and then release. Good. And now see if you can again lift the left heel, keeping the leg straight. So you bring the weight onto the right leg, and then see, can you turn that left leg, turn it, ready to bring that foot just above the other ankle for tree pose effectively. Just be careful you're not sinking into that standing leg hip. So you want to try and keep that left side slightly short, and then see, can you bring the arms up into Urdhva Hastasana arms, just wrapping in the outer upper arm muscles. Just be careful again, you're not sinking into the standing leg hip. Good. And then bring the arms down, bring yourself back onto 2 legs. And then see, can you keep your right leg straight? Just lift the heel to feel that transition of weight onto the left leg. So the right hip hitches slightly, but then these outer hip muscles begin to really work in a very satisfactory manner and then come back down. So just be careful you're not shifting weight by tilting the shoulders. So think of the right leg staying straight, just lift the heel first and then turn the leg out, and then see if you bring that foot just to rest above the other ankle in tree pose, and then take the arms up into Urdhva Hastasana arms. Good. Just nice easy breathing, jaw relaxed. Doesn't matter if you need to put the foot down and come back, it's absolutely fine. Just again try not to sink into that standing leg hip, and then carefully bring the arms back down and release. So there's the preparatory pose. Now we're going to try the fuller pose, which we didn't do last week. So you can start in the same way. Think of lifting the left heel, keeping the legs straight, so you firmly come onto your right leg. And then see, can you bring the foot to the root of the inner thigh. That's it. But if that's not possible, just have it above the ankle again. Take your time to find the balance. Keep the tummy lifted. Good. And then think of taking the arms up into Urdhva Hastasana arms. Nice, easy breathing. Keep the thigh muscles lifted on that right leg. So keep the muscles above the kneecap engaged. Good. And then slowly release. Come back into Tadasana with the feet hip distance apart. Notice where you're holding the breath in that version of the pose. If you are near a wall, by all means use a wall to help. And now see if we can go to the other side. So I think of the right leg staying straight initially, just to lift the heels, so to get the correct action in the hips. Turn the leg out, and then see, can you bring this foot to rest in the root, of the left inner thigh. So this is where my weakness on my right hand side, even that I'm mirroring. Good. And then see, can you take the arms up into Urdhva Hastasana arms. Just nice easy breathing, eyes soft, tummy stays lifted. That's it. Good. And then carefully release, bring the leg back down. Come back onto the standing Tadasana with the feet hip distance apart. Good. Now, please come towards the front edge of your mat. So I'll turn to the side, but keep your feet hip distance apart. Hip distance apart. And then just looking forward, take a breath in, and as you breathe out, think of your bottom literally moving back in space. So bottom goes out as you sit down into Uttanasana, just bringing the arms forward rather than up towards the ceiling. And as you sit into Uttanasana, try and keep the head of the shin back, and then carefully come back up to standing. So you don't want this to turn into a fall. Can you see how that's me falling into my knee? And you'll see a lot of people that get into trouble, I'm afraid, as they get older, trying to get out of a chair by falling into the knee. So you want to think of keeping the head of the shin back. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, think of your bottom going back in space to sit down into Uttanasana. Good. And then carefully come back up. Yeah. Each time you come up, just take a moment to let the breath settle. Okay. And then we'll just do the Uttanasana one more time. So I'm showing from the front again, as you sit down, so you take a breath in, prepare, careful your knees don't come together, so you want to keep them apart. Keep the head of the shin back as you sit down into Uttanasana, and then carefully come back up. Good. So if you need to have a look, we're going to go from Tadasana to Uttanasana into down dog. So if you need to have a look, by all means have a look for the first one, but otherwise we can do it together. Stand at the front edge of your mat in Tadasana. Take a breath in to prepare, so nice breath into the tummy. As you breathe out, sit down into Uttanasana. And then from here, bring the hands down to the floor, just either side of the feet. Release the head, step your right leg back, and then your left leg back. And then come into down dog. So you keep the knees bent initially, push through the arms, push the floor away from you. Try and lift the hips high, lengthen the pelvis away from the armpits this time, and then begin to straighten the legs. So you lift the thigh muscles up and back to the bone. Keep pressing the chest towards the thighs. Keep the leg muscles engaged. Whatever you do, keep lifting the thigh muscles so that the weight of the pose comes into the legs. You can think of the calf muscles hitting back into the space behind you, the hamstring muscles too at the back of the leg, just breathing here, letting the head go. And then look forward, step your right leg back, and then your left leg back. Keep them apart, hip distance. Let the head release and lift up through the tummy to roll up through the spine to come back into Tadasana. So Tadasana, and then just take a moment to rest in Tadasana, but keep it an active Tadasana, keep the thigh muscles lifted, just allow the breath to settle. Yeah. And then we'll repeat that little sequence, but leading with the left leg this time. So just come to the front edge of your mat, roll the shoulder blades together, take a breath in. As you breathe out, sit down into Uttanasana first, looking forward, and then dive the hands down and the head down towards the mat. Keep the legs bent as much as you like. Step the left leg back, and then the right leg back, and then see can you come into down dog straight away. So you lift the thigh muscles straight away, press the chest towards the thighs, lengthen through the arms, keep the hips high, as though you're, just as in sitting, you're trying to push your buttock bones back into the space behind you. Keep breathing, and then look forward, step your left leg back to the front, then the right, keep them hip distance apart, release the head and lift up through the tummy until you roll all the way up to standing, and the head is the last thing to land on top of the spine. Good. And again, just take a moment to rest in Tadasana. Tadasana, just to rest. Now, we're just going to add a pose to that sequence. Going to add Chaturanga Dandasana, or the initial part of it. If you want a reminder of that, then by all means watch the first go. But if you, otherwise we can do it together. So you stand at the front edge of the mat in Tadasana, feet hip distance apart. You take a breath in. As you breathe out, sit down into Uttanasana again. Dive the hands down to the mat, release the head. Step your left leg back, sorry, your right leg back, my mistake, doesn't really matter, left leg back to come into down dog. So again in down dog, use the arms, use the legs, push the buttock bones into the space behind you. Good, and now begin to look forward with the head and eyes. Allow the shoulders to come over the wrists. The bottom descends slightly, but squeeze the bottom like crazy without dropping the ribs in Chaturanga. And then lift the hips high and back behind you to return to down dog. And then look forward, step your right leg back and your left leg back. release the head, and then lift up through the tummy to roll up through the spine to come back into Tadasana at the front edge of your mat. Okay, just allow the breath to soften, the jaw to be nice and easy, eyes soft. Good. Good. And then we'll repeat that sequence, but leading with the left leg. So when you're ready, stand at the front edge of your mat again, in Tadasana. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, think of the bottom going back in space. Keep the head of the shin back to Uttanasana. Dive the hands down towards the mat and release the head. Step your left leg well back, your right leg too, to come once more into Adho Mukha Shavasana, or down dog. Best down dog now of the evening. Keep the legs super active. And then begin to look forward. Allow yourself to come into this plank position. Keep pushing down through the arms. Keep squeezing the buttocks. So don't make this up dog, it's the plank position. And then lift the hips high and back behind you to return to Adho Mukha Shavasana. And then look forward. Step your left leg back and your right leg back. Keep them hip distance apart. And lift up through the tummy to roll back up into Tadasana. Tadasana, feet hip distance apart. Good. Just take a moment to rest. And then probably make sure you have your mats parallel to the screen. And then come to stand in the middle of your mat in Tadasana, but this time with the feet together. Give you a moment just to adjust the mat. So come and stand in Tadasana. Tadasana again, it's very tempting to harden through the wrists and the hands, but try and just let the wrists be soft, the arms be long but soft. And then we're just going to move into a few standing poses. So first of all, bring the middle fingers to touch, bend the knees, and then step your feet nice and wide apart. You can just bring the hands onto the hips initially, and check that the toes are facing forward. And as we've taken the legs wider, still pressing down into the four corners of the feet. Don't just let the weight go into the outside part of the foot. So you want to keep pressing down through the ball of the big toe and the inner heel as well. When you do that, something happens in the hips. Now turn your left foot, your left leg, a little bit in, and then turn the whole of the right leg out. So inner thigh, knee and toes all facing in the same direction. And then check that you're not pushing out into your left hip. So you want to keep that outer hip sucked in, so that your weight, you'll remember, is evenly distributed over the 2 feet. Good. Now bring your arms out up to shoulder height. Again, careful you're not lifting from the trapezius muscles, but the arms are kind of spreading out from the spine. And then think about the weight in the 2 legs. Remember, we looked at this in the last couple of weeks. Can you begin to bend your right leg towards the right angle? You can go slowly, but I'm still pushing the floor away from me to make sure my weight stays in the back leg too. So into Virabhadrasana 2. And then once you're in the pose, look towards your right middle finger as you reach into the back middle finger. Good. And then carefully straighten the right leg, bring the legs back to centre, release the arms, and then come back into Tadasana. I mean, just taking a moment to just assimilate the effects of that pose. And then we'll go to the other side. So you bring the middle fingers to touch, bend the knees, step the feet nice and wide apart. Again, just bring the hands onto the hips first time. Think of the elbows drawing together behind you. And check again the four corners of the feet. So not just the outside edge, ball of the big toe, inner heels pressing down. And then turn your right foot in slightly. And then turn the whole of the left leg out. So inner thigh, knee and foot. And then the foot comes fully down. Careful you're not cocking into that right outer hip. So keep that gathered in. Bring the arms to shoulder height. And then slowly begin to bend your left leg. But keep pushing into the floor with that left leg. So it's not a collapse into the knee. It's a controlled descent through the hip joints. And then look towards your left middle finger as you reach into the back middle finger. So the spine stays above the pelvis. And then carefully straighten that left leg. Bring the legs back to centre. And then come back to the starting position. So Virabhadrasana 2, just to recap from two weeks ago. Okay, so come back into Tadasana. And then from here, let's go again. So you bring the middle fingers to touch, bend the knees, step your feet nice and wide apart, but this time can you extend the arms at the same time? So nice and wide apart, feet facing forward initially, thigh muscles engaged, lower tummy lifted, turn your left foot in slightly, turn the whole of the right leg out. So again, and then begin to come once more into Vira 2. So keep pushing into that right leg, so it's a controlled coming into the pose. And then from here, can you bring the forearm to rest lightly on the right thigh, the right forearm, other hand onto the outer hip. So Utthita Parsvanasana, that's it, so you allow the sit bone to descend. Good. And now from here, can you straighten the right leg and come into Utthita Trikonasana. So right hand is just resting against the right leg, left arm reaching towards the ceiling, and try and turn the navel and the ribs towards the ceiling. Good. And then inhale to come up with both arms. Bring the feet back to centre, and then come back to the middle. So from Virabhadrasana 2, we went into two other poses, two other standing poses. So just return to the centre of your mat just for a moment, just let the breath settle, and then we'll do that to the other side. So you bring the middle fingers to touch, bend the knees, and then step the feet nice and wide apart as you extend the arms at the same time. Just be careful again, you're not resorting to the traps, trying to think of the arms growing out of the spine. Now turn your right foot in slightly, turn the whole of the left leg out, and then straighten it. Feel the weight evenly distributed between the 2 feet, and then begin to slowly bend your left leg. So you descend into, controlled descent into Vira 2, and then bring the left forearm to rest lightly on the thigh. Try to turn the chest and the shoulders towards the ceiling, and then see from here, can you simply straighten the left leg to come into Utthita Trikonasana, triangle pose, and then try to turn the head and eyes to look towards the top hand. Good. Keep breathing, keep both legs very straight, and then with both arms, inhale to come up. Good. Bring the feet back to centre, and then step back to the middle. Great. So just a quick recap of the 3 basic standing poses. Now we're going to see if we can take this into Ardha Chandrasana, or half moon pose. So please come and stand towards the left hand side of your mat. So stand in the left hand side of the mat, and then take your feet wide apart, a standing pose distance. Good. And then turn your left foot, your left leg a little bit in, and turn the right leg all the way out. Okay, just be careful. Again, you're not sinking into that left outer hip. Keep that sucked in. Take the arms out to shoulder height. Extend the right arm up towards the ceiling. So I press into that back leg to really lengthen the left leg, to lengthen the right hand side, and then begin to reach out into the space to the right and bring the hand down. So once more we're in Utthita Trikonasana. Now bring the left hand onto the outer hip. Begin to bend your right leg, but remember trying to keep the weight in the back leg too, so it's not a collapse. So you bend the right leg and then bring the right hand to the floor about a foot behind and away from, or 10 inches or so away from the little toe side of that right foot. And then just see, can you slide the back foot in, so that initially you're just resting on the right foot, the left big toe and the fingertips of the right hand. And see then, can you begin to straighten both legs at the same time. So left leg lifts hip height and push the calf into the heel. Keep the toes and knees facing forward. And then see, can you turn the chest towards the ceiling and take the top arm up. Just in line with the collarbone. Good. And then carefully release. Ardha Chandrasana, an Ardha pose. Good. That's it. Just take a moment to feel the effects of the Ardha Chandrasana, the half moon pose. Good. And then we'll start from the other side. So if you come to the right hand side of your mat to begin with, and then take your feet standing pose distance apart. Good. Engage the thigh muscles, extend the arms to shoulder height, turn your right foot in slightly, turn the whole of the left leg out, straighten the legs first of all. Now lengthen the left arm towards the ceiling. So from that back leg I push in to really lengthen from the foot to the fingertips, and then begin to reach out into the space to the left to come first of all into Utthita Trikonasana. Now bring the right hand onto the outer hip. Slowly begin to bend your left leg towards that right angle. Bring the fingertips of the left hand onto the floor just to support you behind the foot. And then slide your back leg in or hop in. And just pause to rest on these 3 points of support. And then see, can you begin to straighten both legs at the same time. So you lift the right leg till it's hip height. The toes and knee of the right leg are facing to your forward, and keep lengthening the right calf into the right heel, so it's not just the foot dangling on the end of the leg. And see, can you turn the chest, turn the navel, turn the ribs towards the ceiling, and then take the top arm up, just in half moon pose. And then carefully release, come out of it, and then just come and stand again in the middle of your mat, feet hip distance apart. Okay, so everyone, please come to the middle of your mat, stand at the back edge of your mat, and then take your feet nice and wide apart. So make sure you're using the back edge of your alignment, of your mat for your alignment. Toes facing forward, still pressing down into the four corners of the feet. It's very easy just to push out into the outer ankle and sickle the foot. So you want to really make sure the four corners of the feet are pressing down. Keep the thigh muscles lifted, roll the shoulders back, and then think there's a hook on your breastbone just bringing the body forward so you can release the hands down to the floor directly underneath the shoulder blades. So I'm just on my fingertips. As you come into this pose, careful that you're keeping the hips in line with the feet, that you're not letting the pelvis shoot forward or too far back. So now, if you're in the pose, just think of the breastbone lengthening slightly forward. That keep that lower tummy lifted, so that this isn't a back bend, it's lengthening the front and back of the body. Prasarita Padottanasana. Good. And then slowly bend the knees, begin to creep the feet back towards each other, and then keep the head released as you lift up through the tummy to slowly come back up to standing. Good. Now, make sure you have your blanket, and then come down to sit down on your mat. And if you have a block, use one of the blocks for this. So I'm going to unfold my blanket. I got one of the thicker mats anyway, but the blanket is just to give me a bit more cushioning underneath the knees and the shins. So just sitting in the middle of your mat, on your heels if possible. Just in the middle of your mat. Yeah. And then have your block on the front edge of your mat, out to the side. So we're going to do Parigasana or gate pose. And then from here, come up onto your knees. You'll notice that's the reason for the extra cushioning underneath the knees and the shins. And think of pressing the shins and the tops of the foot into the floor. So if I press the shins down, it helps to engage the gluteal area, the buttock area, which helps to open the hip joints at the front of the body. And then once you're up on the knees, bring your left leg out to the side, and just make sure that the inner edge of that left foot is in line, directly in line with the front of your right knee. They're in alignment on your mat. And then can you straighten this left leg to bring the ball of the foot to rest on the block, and press the ball of the foot into the block and suck the thigh muscles back to the bone. Again, it's easy here to drop into that right outer hip. So you want to keep that outer hip sucked in as you're pressing into the ball of the left foot. And then bring your arms out to shoulder height. Roll the shoulders to turn the palms towards the ceiling. And think you're going to extend out to the left and bring your right hand onto the outer hip. And then bring the back of the left hand onto the left lower leg if possible. And then take a breath in. And as you breathe out, can you maybe slide the back of that hand further down the left leg? So you take a breath in. As you breathe out, maybe you can slide a little bit more. And once more, take a breath in. Exhale, slide the back of that hand away from you. Now see if you can stay there and try and turn the chest towards the ceiling. And then you take your right arm up and over to see, can you bring the hands towards each other. Try to keep the chest turned towards the ceiling and the head. Good. And then inhale to come up. Bring the legs back to centre and then come and sit back on the heels. So a lot of good stretch for those outer hip muscles that you may have been feeling, as well as the hamstring. Now please bring the block onto your other side, so onto your right hand side, just adjust it. And then once more, come up onto your shins. Press the shins down on the tops of the foot to engage the buttocks to help open the hip joint. And then see, can you bring your right foot out to the side. Just check the inner edge of that foot is in line with your left knee. That's the important thing. Good. And then can you stretch that leg out long, so the ball of the foot is pressing down into the block. But this standing thigh needs to be vertical, so not slanting. Good. Really press down into the ball of the foot, draw the thigh muscles back to the bone, extend the arms out to shoulder height, roll the shoulders to turn the palms, and think you're reaching all the way out to the side. Bring the left hand onto the outer hip, the back of the right hand down onto the leg. Now try and turn the chest towards the ceiling. Take a breath in, a full breath in. As you exhale, maybe you can slide the hand a little bit further down the leg. Again, take a good breath in. As you breathe out, maybe go a bit further. And one more time, take a good breath in. As you exhale, slide a little bit further. And then if you can, you take the top arm up and over in an arc to try and bring the hands towards each other, but try to keep the chest looking towards the ceiling. So if you weren't feeling a stretch in that left outer hip, probably are now in the ribs on the side. Good. And then inhale to come up with both arms. Bring the legs back to centre. Good. And then come back to onto your heels. Good. Now, just put the blanket to one side for a moment, and then come and lie down on your back. I'm going to use the blanket this time behind the back of the head and the neck. Probably a good idea just to have some kind of support behind the back of the head. And then make sure you have your belt nearby. So you don't need to loop in the belt, just a long belt, but just have it nearby. Just going to do Sept Padangusthasana 1, just the first in the sequence. So keep your knees bent up, and just use your thumbs to just move the buttock flesh towards the backs of the knees, just to help lengthen the lower back. And then fold your right leg in towards you. So you interlace the hands around the head of the shin. Just draw that leg in as close to you as you comfortably can. Put the belt around the ball of the foot or the arch of the foot, just so you have a strand of the belt in either hand. Keep the thigh drawn in close, and then see, can you just lengthen the foot up towards the ceiling. Now, if not towards the ceiling, have it further away from you, but the important thing is the leg should be straight. So if you find bringing it in is causing those hamstrings to quiver and the knee bend, that's just have it somewhere where it can be straight. Slide the hands down the belt till your elbows can make contact into the floor, and just think of extending through the big toe side, so extending the big toe side of the foot into the belt and the little toe side drawing down to the outer knee. Keep your tummy in, and then lengthen your left leg away from you on the floor. So keep breathing, allow the weight of the arms to be in the belt, so keeping the stretch in the hamstrings, and keep lengthening through the left leg as well. And then release and change. So bring the left foot into the belt, fold the thigh in close towards you, and then begin to extend the leg long up towards the ceiling. You can use the belt just to find that action in the foot. So big toe side extends into the belt, little toe side as though you're pulling the little toe side down to the outer knee and to the hip. Good. Now keep the tummy pulled in as you lengthen out your right leg. So reaching through both legs actively in the pose. Sept Padangusthasana 1. breathe. Good. And then release. Good. Now, just put the belt to one side for a moment. Keep the arms down by your side, just comfortably down by your side. Bring your heels in as close to your bottom as is humanly possible. You can use your hands to pull the heels in close to the bum. And then take a breath in, and as you breathe out, press the feet down into the floor to lift your pelvis into Chatuspadasana. So keep the heels pressing down, think of the thighs lengthening towards the knees, and squeeze your bottom like crazy. And then just see, can you walk onto the tops of the shoulders to help lift and open the chest in Chatuspadasana. Good. And then carefully let the pelvis come back down. Good. So just pause with the pelvis down. So you can also just take a grip of the outside edges of your mat with your hands just to help you. Keep the heels in close. Take a breath in, and as you breathe out, drive the feet down into the floor as you squeeze the bottom to pick the pelvis up. And then see, could you walk even more onto the tops of your shoulders for Chatush or bridge pose. Yeah, good. And then carefully come back down. Good. And we're just going to do it one more time. Chatuspadasana, bridge pose. Basic back bend in the certainly in the Iyengar Yoga syllabus. So again, take a breath in. As you breathe out, squeeze your bottom, drive the feet down into the floor to come up, and then just see, can you walk right up onto the tops of your shoulders. Stay looking at the chest rather than the ceiling, and then carefully come all the way back down and release. Good. Now, from here, please come and roll onto your front. Turn round on my mat. Just come to lie on your front. And then have your two arms just long down by your side with the palms turned towards the ceiling. So separate your legs so they're about hip distance apart and the feet are pointed. And just think of lengthening your right leg down and away from you, and then release. So you're not lifting it yet, just lengthening it away from you. And then lengthen your left leg down and away from you, and then release. Good. Now, the arms just down by the side, backs of the hands on the floor, just by the hips. Think of just pressing your hands down into the floor to help you lift the shoulders away from the mat, and think of them drawing together behind you. And then once you've done that, lengthen and lift the legs just to hover, and the head too, just to look a little bit beyond you on the mat, and you lift the hands away from the floor so they hover by the hips, as if you're just holding a can of baked beans in either hand, little can of baked beans. And then release back down. So again, think of pressing the backs of the hands into the floor to help you really pick the shoulders away from the floor. Squeeze the shoulders together, and then lengthen the legs as you lift them, and the hands just hover by the hips, just look slightly forward of the edge of your mat in Salambhasana or locust pose. Good. And then release. Good. Now just bring your hands underneath the forehead, and then just roll your pelvis a little bit from side to side, and not just the pelvis, the chest is rolling a little bit too, just to ease off any tension that may have crept into the area of the lower back. Good. And then bring the hands by your chest, curl the toes under, lift your tummy first, lift the hips to come into tabletop position, all fours position. Bring the big toes together, pull in the tummy, as you sit the bottom back towards the heels, keep the tummy pulled in, and then just rest the head down in Adho Mukha Virasana, just stretch out some of those lower back muscles. Keep the tummy pulled in, just breathing. And then undo, come and lie down on your back once more, but keep your legs bent up. Don't straighten the legs, keep them bent up. Keep them bent up. And then just bring both knees in towards the chest. Press them together with the hands. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, try and lift the forehead towards the knees as you just draw the knees towards the forehead, and then release the head and shoulders back down. So one more time, take a breath in. As you breathe out, think of the forehead and the knees coming closer together. Good. And then release the head and shoulders back down. Now just bring the feet down onto the floor. Have the arms just comfortably by your side, and very gently tilt the knees to the left as you breathe in. Pull in the tummy to come back to centre. Tilt the knees to the right as you breathe in. Pull in the tummy to come back to centre. Begin to roll the head and eyes in the opposite direction to the knees. Just nice easy movement just to undo the back a little bit more. So just gently tilting the legs from one side to the other. Good. And then pause in the middle. Have a blanket behind the back of the head if you have one. Use a bolster behind the backs of the knees. Just tuck the buttock flesh towards the direction of the feet again, and then either lengthen the legs in Shavasana without a bolster, or have a bolster behind the backs of the legs. Turn the palms, have the arms just comfortably by your side with the palms towards the ceiling. And remember that action of turning the palms begins with tucking the shoulder blades into the back to help lift and open the chest. Just check that you're not shortening in the back of the neck. You might need just to tuck the chin in slightly. Allow the big toe sides of the feet to roll to the little toe sides. Good idea if you have glasses to take them off for Shavasana. And then just as we did at the beginning of the class, just begin to draw your attention back to your breath. So just really just giving permission for the breath to fully explore down to the pelvis, up to the collarbones and the ears, out to the sides and down to the floor and up towards the ceiling. So you're expanding from the inside to the outside every time you take a breath in. And as you exhale, just surrender to the breath. Think of the ribs softening, the chest softening. With each exhalation, see if you can allow the tension just to ease out, so the eyes softening, the jaw, the tongue, the throat. And then soften the palms of the right hand and the left hand and the soles of the 2 feet. And then slowly, stay here all evening actually, but slowly begin to wriggle the fingers and toes just to come out of the Shavasana. And then bring your feet onto your bolster or just onto the floor, so you bend the knees. And then slowly roll to a side and just stay on the side just for a moment, don't suddenly lift up. Just again, focus on the breath, so your inhalations and exhalations. And then, just as a challenge for you, just seek, as you come to sit, can you do that without holding the breath? So just focus on the breath as you use your arms to support you, just to come and sit in an easy cross-legged position facing the front again. Oh, it's dark. Good. And then bring your palms into Namaskar-asana. Close the eyes. And then bring the forehead down. Release the hands. On an inhalation, slowly open the eyes and look up. Thank you again, everybody.